Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome to our live event today, Tiny Humans, Big Emotions. My name is Adam Franchella, and I am the Chief Product Officer at Auggie, which essentially means I am in charge of the app and figuring out what to build and what is hopefully as helpful for you guys as possible. And as I'm sure many of you know, Auggie is the platform where both new and expecting parents come to find community, to share recommendations with one another, shop vetted products and services. So today's topic is obviously very pertinent to everyone in our community, I think. It's really one that touches all parents. It's how to raise emotionally intelligent children while also learning to navigate our own emotions during what can be sometimes a very challenging time. So it's a conversation that I think is deeply needed, and we're so glad that you guys are here for it. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, if that's okay with everyone. So, hopefully that makes sense. It's just because we are wanting to make sure this is accessible for everyone in the future, this wonderful content that we're going to be bringing with Alyssa. And as we go too, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, or even if you'd like to hop off mute or you put your video on and ask a question, we would encourage that as well. We'd love to make this as open a dialogue as possible. So with that, Alyssa, I'll kick it over to you just to do a little bit of an introduction of yourself, and then we can get started.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. I am jazzed to be here with y'all. My name is Alyssa. I have a master's degree in early childhood education, and I did research in building emotional intelligence in kids in partnership with Brandeis University. And I'm also a mom of two tiny humans who have big emotions. I have a 4-year-old and I have 18-ish month old, 1.5 somewhere. At some point you stop counting the months, I guess. I love hearing where people are tuning in from. I'm currently in Burlington, Vermont, although right after this call, I'm driving out to Maine for the long weekend with my family. Uh,
Nice. That's exciting.
yeah. Yeah, we were originally going to go camping and it would be our first time for all four of us going camping, and it was going to be raining all weekend. And I was like, I'm not doing this to
Yeah,
myself. I'm not putting
quite literally a
myself
rain check. Yeah.
legit a rain check. But I'm excited to hang and chat. And yes, please ask your questions as we go. And we'll get a little nerdy with you today and start to understand what is happening for the tiny humans on the inside, what's happening for us on the inside, and where do we go with that? How do we navigate the big emotions for us, for them, and ultimately foster emotional intelligence?
Awesome. So excited, Alyssa. I'm still in the time period as a father where I'm counting months. I have one son. His name is Bo. He's 6 months old. So I'm not quite in that stage of having these big emotions yet. It's mainly just, inexplicable tears, but that's okay. That's expected.
It's another
Um,
form of big emotions, my
yeah, fair
friend.
enough. Fair enough. But I do get to see it firsthand with my niece, who I'm very close to. And she's 3 years old, so she's definitely in it.
Prime
Um,
clientele for those
yeah,
big
yeah,
emotions.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, like you said, let's start kind of from the very top, right? Like, what even is emotional intelligence, and why does it matter so much during this like early childhood phase?
Yeah, for sure. So I love this because I feel like it's gotten so buzzwordy in a way that's awesome. I'm so glad that we're talking about emotional intelligence in a way that many of us didn't grow up receiving and talking about. And a lot of folks are like, yeah, but what even is that? So there are 5 components to emotional intelligence. We're looking at self-awareness, where we can, my 4-year-old calls this noticing the volcano, where you can kind of notice it as it's building before it erupts, like what's
Mhm.
happening on the inside. We have self-regulation, where we can then regulate and start to pump the brakes on that volcano and potentially avoid an eruption, or at
Mhm.
least navigate an eruption with some tools. So self-awareness, self-reg, we've got self-care. This is where, or I'm sorry, self-awareness, self-reg, social skills. This is where we're looking at like, what does it look like to kind of navigate a space and know, how do I show up at school versus at home? What does it look like for me to talk to a peer versus to talk to my grandma, right? Like to be able to differentiate what's the right behavior in a different space. I relatively recently was just like having a day, and I had powered through like meetings and things and had just like emotions, that feeling where it's like I don't want anyone to hug me because I'm just going to start to cry. And I was like in that space, and it was time to go pick my kids up from childcare. And so I'm like, all right, well, on to the next. And I had to swing through the store to get something for dinner on my way. And I stopped at the store, having a conversation with the cashier. And she just started with, how are you today? And I just started sobbing, right? Like
Yeah.
this would be an example of social skills not at work, where it's not her job to handle my big stuff. When she says, how are you? She's like, okay, noted, not asking that question to another human today. And really what this is that I need to be mindful of, like, who is my safe space to break down to? It's not appropriate at the grocery store. It is appropriate with my best friend or with my partner or with somebody I feel close with. And so helping kids start to determine that, where is what appropriate to show up with. And there's a lot of us grew up in spaces where there wasn't a space for any of us to show all of us, where every part of us was welcome, where we could really melt and have a hard time and know that this person can handle every part of me. A lot of us didn't grow up with that person, and so we've seen a really big pendulum swing to wanting to make every space that space for kids. And what I find so reassuring as a parent is that we don't have to in order to build emotional intelligence. So it's okay if, when my kid goes to school, there are people at school that don't respond to him in the exact way that I would want to. Or if, when he's with my parents, maybe they don't respond in the exact way that I would want them to. And then what my kids learn is, oh, I can't show this part of me here, right? That maybe Grammy can't handle my anxious part. And so they save that part for me. What's key with the social skills isn't to hide parts of ourselves, it's to learn where are our safe places. And so when we're teaching about social skills, what's going to be really huge is that we notice, is there anything that they don't show to us, that they aren't breaking down to us about? And what work can we do so that we can be that safe space for them? There are two other parts of emotional intelligence. We have empathy, which is really being able to say, oh, I know what that experience is. It's not, I know what you're going through and I would feel the same. It's, I know what it feels like to feel frustrated, to feel disappointed. I wrote in my last book, Tiny Humans, Big Emotions, this story where there's a child building with magnetiles at a table, and the table had been bumped into, and the magnetiles crashed. And I like said all the right things, but I didn't really feel that bad. I'm like, you can build it again, right? This isn't the end of the world, not a big deal. Inside, that was my experience. And then fast forward to my 2-year-old coming in after I'd folded a bunch of laundry and wrecking my laundry piles. And if you had popped in at that moment and been like, don't worry, Alyssa, you can fold it again. Like, nope, no, that's not
Yeah,
it.
that's a
I
great
know,
analogy. Yeah.
right? Like, I know I have to. I know that's what's coming in the end. I know this isn't the end of the world. And right now, I'm frustrated or I'm
Yeah.
disappointed about this experience. And that's what empathy is being able to connect over the feeling, not why they're feeling it. And then the last
Mhm.
one is motivation. This is where we're looking at intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. No one on the planet has only intrinsic motivation. It's not our goal, but it's looking at, do you have some? So extrinsic is, are you proud of me? Intrinsic is, I'm proud of me. And so when we have kids who are constantly looking extrinsically, am I going to get a reward for this? Are you going to acknowledge it? Am I doing enough? That extrinsic motivation is always about, do I feel connected? Do I have approval from someone else? Am I loved? Am I valued? Am I worthy? And we want them to know you're loved, you're valued, you're worthy, regardless of what happens on the outside. And that's really what ends up fueling the, like, oh, I can have grit. I can have resilience. I can keep going back and trying again and failing and trying again because I'm intrinsically motivated. I'm not worried about, what if I try this and I don't succeed at it? On the outside, how's that going to play? How are people going to feel about me? When they know we love you no matter what happens on the outside, then they start to really tune into that internal of, like, ooh, does this feel good for me? am I proud of this work? Do I have the drive and desire to try this again? And it's not about the people on the outside anymore. So those are the 5 things we're really looking to foster.
Love that, Alyssa. That's so cool. I just think all of those 5 things are just not only clearly valuable for our tiny humans, but they're just so valuable for us as adults, right? And I think
Right.
to your point, like, one of those 5 being empathy, if we can realize that some of those 5 are tough for us to navigate on a daily basis, imagine how tough it must be for our little ones. And I'm sure you might talk about this, but the more that we can probably display emotional intelligence with those 5 pillars, I'm sure the more helpful it is. The other thing that I've seen in my life, through myself and my sister and brother, is that different people in your life treat your children differently than you might hope for them to be
Mhm.
treated. But the context that your children need to learn is like, there are different situations, there are different people that I can let see different things or can handle different things. It's such a cool way to put it, where it's like, you don't actually need everyone in your child's life to be parenting or to be teaching your kids in the exact same way or reacting to your kids in the exact same way, because that's not how life works, right? So they're learning ultimately where they feel a little safer, where they can let their emotions go out, things of that nature. So that also really clicked for me. So that was cool. Listen,
Yeah, I'm so glad it's helpful. And for me, it's
yeah,
just like a relief as a parent because I can only control me, right? And
right, right,
I try like hell to control everyone else around me, but it turns out I can really only control me. And so
yeah,
when the rubber meets the road, it for me, it's just like thank goodness I only have to control me. That
right,
when my kids go out into the world, it's okay if not every place is their safe place. And from an emotional wellness perspective, it's just really not a priority. It's not a necessity for them to have high emotional
yeah,
intelligence.
right, right. That is awesome. I'm definitely experiencing some of that with daycare right now. We took our son to daycare a couple
Sure.
weeks ago for the first time, which was, as you can imagine, a huge challenge for me, but even more so for my wife.
Yeah.
And some of what I'm going to definitely make sure she listens to this when she's off work later, because I think some of this is hugely important to just let go a little bit of, like, they're at daycare, there's a different experience, they're teaching a little bit differently, they're treating our son a little differently, but that's okay. It's helping him to become an emotionally intelligent human by understanding some of that context and stuff like that.
Totally.
So
And the way that I really look at it is looking at like, what are my non-negotiables? Like, what are the things that, like, for me, one of the non-negotiables is spanking. Another one is
sure, yeah.
like car seat safety, right? Where it's like, I feel really strongly about car seat safety. And so I'm
Hmm.
going to install the car seat in your car, or I'm going to show you how to buckle
Right.
them. And that is something that for me is like, I'm not going to roll the dice on. I'm not going to take this risk. And same with like spanking. That's my like hard no.
Yep.
But when my child has a meltdown or a tantrum and my dad disconnects from him and I see him like kind of go offline, I see my child trying to work back into connection with my dad. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Right.
my childhood parts are like screaming inside.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I
I've
don't
been
have to
there.
fix this. Yeah. And I
Right.
don't have to
Yeah.
fix it. Like my son will learn that there are things that are too hard for Pa to handle, that
Right.
he's still learning how to experience those emotions himself. And he has a hard time being around them with other people. And we
Right.
have those conversations later of like, oh yeah, I noticed when this happened and you were trying to connect with Pa and he was being so quiet. I've experienced that too. Pa's still
Right.
learning X, Y, and Z. And just being able to have those conversations later with kids and let them know it's not your job to change. It's not a you thing. It's that everyone in the world is showing
Right.
their own stuff.
Yeah. And it's such a calming realization that that can happen. And you realize that, that's actually part of what's shaping my child's emotional intelligence
Hmm.
is these, the context understanding of, like, okay, there are differences in how people are going to treat me depending on, where they might be, in terms of their own emotional intelligence and journey and things of that
100%.
nature. So that's cool. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so let's get into outbursts. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm a new dad, so I am not quite in the outburst stage yet, but I definitely have enough self awareness to realize that it's coming. And in general, emotional outbursts are just a part of parenting, but of course, they can be incredibly triggering. What practical tools can parents use just to stay grounded during a
Sure.
meltdown?
Sure. Well, first of all, recognizing that there's no one size fits all. And anyone who's interacted with more than one kid or has more than one kid knows that it's not like, okay, I figured it out for this kid and now just like copy paste. That really everybody comes to the table with their own nervous system. So much of our work at Seed, I told you we're going to get a little nerdy today, dives into the nervous system and understanding your unique nervous system, maybe your partners or co parents, understanding the child in front of you or children in front of you's nervous systems. And this helps us then know, how do we respond in the moment and how do we support them outside the moment? So let's break this down a little bit. We have 9 sensory systems. Within our senses, we often hear of 5: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. And there are 4 others that we don't talk about a whole lot. We have our vestibular system, which is responsible for your movement and balance. It's located in your inner ear. If you've ever experienced like motion sickness or vertigo, it's all coming back to your vestibular system. Another sense that we have is our proprioceptive sense. This lets us know where our body is in relationship to other things. So if you have a kid who like plows through things, or you're like me and I like always have bruises on my legs because I've bumped into the bed on the way by, I've bumped into the table or the ottoman or the chair. My proprioceptive sense, my proprioceptive awareness is really low. And so for me, I have to do a lot of things to know does my body end and something else begins.
Mm.
And for kids, it can be like a bull in a china shop, is how it presents.
Right.
And then we have our interoceptive sense. This is where we can kind of notice those internal cues. Like if you're someone who, if you get a little hungry, you're hangry, or you have a kid who they're a little tired and they're exhausted. These kids often are really easy to help like potty learning with because they can notice, oh, I have to go to the bathroom in like hyper specific way. You can really sense that. They're also really rad at noticing things like, oh, my heart's beating fast, or I'm starting to like feel a feeling.
Mm.
And when we're looking at the interoceptive sense, some people are more sensitive, some people are less sensitive to it. And then we have our neuroceptive sense. I call this our spidey sense. This is where we can kind of read the energy of the room. You know, if you walk into a space and people have been like maybe in a conflict or arguing, and even though they're not arguing anymore, you can feel it in the room and you're like, ugh.
Yep.
Yeah, that energy is your
Hmm.
neuroceptive sense saying like, something's off here. And even if like you were sitting in a room and you like felt somebody come in where you don't even see them, but you kind of like notice it, it's your neuroceptive sense. Its job is to look for danger, essentially. And so kids who have a heightened neuroceptive sense, who are really aware of neuroception, they often are like really big energy readers, and it can be hard for them to regulate when other people are dysregulated. So they might say, I had a preschooler when I was teaching. I was living in Brooklyn at the time and I was teaching, and he would say, Miss Alyssa, I can't talk to you with that face on. And it was when I was frustrated and my face looked frustrated, even though I was like, quote, saying the right words, I
Right.
still felt frustrated. And he was a
Yeah.
neuroceptive, sensitive human, and he
That's
would
impressive.
read that, right? And we have
Yeah.
kids who like same with like tone, body language are like really huge and important. And really what it is that their neuroceptive sense is sensitive. And so they like really key into those things.
Hmm.
I birthed 2 totally different humans. My 4-year-old is a sensory sensitive human. He is a details person. He notices smells and tastes. Everything is too tight or too itchy. It's too something
Hmm.
and too loud. He will remember where he put something, like from like, hey, buddy, do you know, I was looking for the nail clippers last night to clip his sister's nails. I was like, do you know where those are? And he was like, oh yeah, I saw him over in the bin. She must have brought him into the toy room. And so he's like, got it, locked in. He's a details human. With this, that means that his nervous system can get overwhelmed faster because he's paying attention to all the details in like a heightened sense. He really notices them, and it can add up faster for him when it comes to stimuli. So if he walks into a space where there's kind of like music or background noise going on, or a lot of people are talking and there's visual stimuli, maybe there's stuff hanging on the walls or there's piles of clutter someplace, he starts to get overwhelmed faster. My daughter is more sensory seeking. And so for her, she has not stopped climbing her whole life. She like rearranges furniture. She's pushing things all around the house because she's looking for that proprioceptive input, that sensory seeking. And she loves to have background music on. She'll ask for music in the car at the same point that he's like, it's too loud. And so when we can understand their nervous systems and we know what are they sensitive to, what drains them, and then what recharges them, then it helps us in the moment to know, okay, what do I do now when they're having a hard time? So if Sage, my 4-year-old, is having a tantrum and he's melting down, he's sensory sensitive, which means if I talk to him, it makes it worse. If I touch him, I offer a hug or I put my hand on him, he flies off the handle. And what he really wants is for me to be in close proximity and to be quiet, to just be present and let him express and to decrease any stimuli that I can. So if we can turn off music that's happening, or if I have to, I can like move his body to a space where it's quiet and calm. He hates the moving of the body there, but enjoys the quiet and calm once he gets there. And my daughter is the total opposite, where when she's melting, she's like, okay, tell me how great I am. Tell me all about what I just experienced. Also, can I climb
Give
back
me a big
inside your
hug.
uterus?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Like there's not enough touch that is
Right.
enough. When she's like even just hanging out and we're playing, she'll come over and sit in my lap. He never did that as a young child. Like he does not want that touch. And so when we can understand their nervous systems, it then helps us decode what do we do in the moment. And then we get to bring in our nervous system. So I am what we would consider a neutral seeker, and I don't need a lot of input, sensory input, but I also am not sensory sensitive where I get overwhelmed super fast. I am sound sensitive. So for me, and like bless him, he's incredible, but I married a drummer and there's just like so much tapping that happens in my life. And when it's happening at like 8 in the morning and I've like maybe slept and had some coffee and I'm chilling, then I can like handle it. But when he's drumming on the table at dinner, the like song that's in his head, I want a divorce, right? Because at that point, the stimuli of the day has like added up. And now we're adding this additional stimuli
Yeah,
that for
your
me is
bandwidth as
really
well.
draining. Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then if you were a sensory seeking human, you might enjoy having that like tapping happen or that background stimuli happening. And so what's key is that we really understand the nervous system in its unique individual nervous system. We actually have a free questionnaire. We just launched it 2 weeks ago. If you go to seedquiz.com, it's free. You can take it as many times as you want. You can do age specific. So any age, child, adult, will give you age specific questions and age specific results of like, here we break down all 9 nervous systems. So where does this person fall from very sensitive to very seeking? Where on that spectrum do they fall within each 9? And what does it all mean? So we just released that, a couple weeks ago,
That is
so that you
awesome.
don't. Yeah, thank you. I was doing
My
so
follow-up
many.
question was
Yeah.
literally going to be, how do we
How do we know?
this just sounds amazing. How do I diagnose like myself and my wife
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my kid when he gets old enough? That's
yeah.
awesome.
100%. And you can take
Yeah.
it for infants as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
We Yeah, I was doing so many talks and presenting, and we work a lot with occupational therapists and speech language pathologists in our work. And I would be talking about this, and people would be like, great, how do I figure out what mine is? And so we worked with a group of occupational therapists to put the questionnaire together.
That is
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
and yeah, super jazzed to have a
Cool.
tool for
Perfect.
people to dive into that. But in terms of the in the moment, it really is customized to who is this child in front of me, what's going to drain them, and what's going to recharge them. And we don't know that unless we know their nervous system.
Yeah, I love that. Which makes some follow-up questions almost, I'm sure you have to take them in different directions based on,
Sure.
the type of child that you're dealing with, obviously. But, I think many parents are just like unsure of what to say in some of these like
Hmm.
tense emotional moments with their kids. Like, do you have any
Yeah.
go-to scripts or phrases that help soothe rather than escalate? And are there different ones, it sounds like, for the different children that you just described? So like
Yeah.
curious some of your best practices and how they can relate to different types of kids.
Totally. Well, as you mentioned earlier, the like it starts with us part is really
Yeah.
huge. That
Yeah.
just in the same way that that little guy was like, Miss Alyssa, I can't talk to you with that face on. What I really needed to do was focus on that face, right? Like focus
Right.
on my own frustration so that I could actually connect with him and
Yeah.
not just say the words. And so when we're looking at this, actually, relatively recently, again, I've had a day. My like go-to expression is tears. I can just cry real quickly to the cashier, for
Yeah.
example. And so I'd like
Yeah.
had a day and I'm in the living room and I was crying and my husband walked in and he was like, "Oh no, you look sad." And I was like, "Yeah, way to go, buddy." Like, is it the tears coming down my face? Like, it felt in the moment like he's saying a script, like he's saying what he's supposed to say. And what
Right.
I really want to receive in that moment is his genuine, authentic connection of like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like, wow. And really, that feels way more connecting to me than "you look sad." And so,
Right.
my first and foremost is to start with us and to notice like what's coming up for you, what's happening for you. And I will sometimes narrate that of like, whoa, it just got so loud in here. My heart's beating fast. My shoulders are up to my ears. I'm just going to calm my body so that I can help you. When we're narrating that, it's providing awareness for them of like, oh, how do I tune into my body? What's my body doing subconsciously? B, it helps us actually tune in and start to regulate and calm our
Yeah.
nervous system. And it can help them see and hear from you like, I clock this, I recognize something's happening. I'm going to help. And I'm going to calm myself so I can help you first. We get to model for them that we actually can't navigate problem solving or conflict resolution if we're in a dysregulated state. So I'm going to calm myself so I can show up for you. And un- the only caveat being like there's an emergency. If a kid's running into the street, I'm not like, you know what, let me calm myself before I snag you, right? Like I'm going to scoop them up.
Right.
Or if there's blood, or if like my daughter, real life, is pulling my son's hair, I'm going to pop over and say, oh, wow. And I'm going to push her hand in to release it and say, oh, wow, I won't let you hurt his body. I'm going to pull her over here while we figure this out.
Right.
And just saying exactly what I'm doing. We call it sports casting, where you say what you see. And that just like sets the seed. Now, for my son, I just recognize that anytime I'm saying something, it's adding up for him. So it's
Hmm.
going to regulate her. It's going to, for him, add stimuli.
Escalate him. Yeah.
That's right. And so I want to say what I'm doing as concisely as possible. And 100% of the time, my message to them is, I'm here with you. We're going to figure this out. And that, like, we're on the same team. It's not a me versus you situation. I believe that they are a kind human who's just having a hard time. And at my core, that's genuinely a belief I have. And so when I show up to them, now sometimes they're doing things that are so annoying and so triggering, and I'm like, oh, the like whining, for instance, is one for me that I'm like, and so when he's like whining at me, I will say, you know what, buddy, I have to calm my body. When you are using a whining voice, my ears have a hard time with it, so I'm going to calm my body so that I can listen to you, because it's clear that something's coming up for you and I want to figure it out. And just letting him know like I'm here with you, and also bless, because this is gonna drive me absolutely bonkers if the whining continues and I don't take a minute.
Yeah. It's again just like such a cool thought that like you really only can control yourself. And
The
there's so much impact that can have if you do just learn to be more emotional intelligent yourself, and then how that ultimately finds its way towards our little ones. Just because I think the way that I've thought about this in the past so much is like, what do I say in this moment? What can I do to help them in this moment? For it's like, make sure that what you're mirroring to them is the type of practice that you want them ultimately to try to understand. They might not pick it up the first time that you end up doing that, but I'm guessing over time, as you're doing that sports casting, I love that term. I'm also just a sports guy, but I love that analogy. that it's simultaneously helping us to do what we're trying to teach them while also teaching them.
That's right.
So I think
That's right.
that's really cool.
And when we look at like, what's your ultimate goal? I think so often our goal is to just make it stop. And I've had to shift my goal. When I was on book tour for Tiny Humans, someone was like, okay, love this. Now, how do I set the boundary when we're leaving the playground so that she isn't like sobbing or melting down as we're leaving?
Right.
Like, oh man, I'm so sorry to deliver this news, but that's actually not my goal. My goal isn't that she stops expressing her feelings. My
Hmm.
goal is that they know that you're a safe place to express, and we support them with what we consider pro-social ways to express. So I won't let you throw something. I won't let you hurt somebody's body. I won't let you hurt your own body. Those are boundaries in our household for pro-social expression. You absolutely get to be mad and frustrated, and you don't have to like show up be like, I'm feeling mad about that, mom, in like a regulated tone. Like, no, you get to be mad, and you can't hurt somebody or the things in our household. And so I will step in and I'll release that hair pull, or I'll stop anything that's not in alignment with our boundaries, and then, or with our like household rules. And then I'm still going to let that child express. And so my kid still gets to cry or melt down or feel their feelings. And that is the us work of so many of us did not grow up with that. We did not grow up in households where somebody sat next to us while we cried without just trying to make it go away, without either
Right.
threatening us to make it stop or trying to distract us or find a silver lining, which ultimately in all of those, the adult is saying, this is too uncomfortable for me to be around. So I really need you to stop. And I'm trying to shift that narrative with my kids of like, yeah, you can be in a hard feeling. In fact, Seiji, when he started a new school or a new classroom, he's 3, and in childcare, I'm driving him to school, and he's been in school maybe 2 weeks at this point. He did not want to go, and we're on our way there, and he was like, "Mama, I'm going to be at school, and I'm going to be sad, and I'm going to be all alone, and you won't be there."
Oh.
Yeah, right? I'm like, "I can
Yeah.
quit my job. I don't need
Yeah.
this." Right? Like, bye. And instead, I had to like practice this. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, buddy, that makes sense. You're doing something new and you don't know your teacher or a lot of the kids in your class. That makes sense to feel lonely when you're feeling sad and missing
Yeah.
us at home. And instead of being like, but you're going to have so much fun. Remember when you were playing with so and so? Instead of canceling that out, I said, do you know what's so cool about feelings? None of our feelings stay for a long time. Remember last night when you were playing with dad and you were up on his shoulders and you were playing that game and you were laughing and you were happy and you were having so much fun. And right now you're not feeling happy anymore because happy doesn't stay for a long time, and scared doesn't stay for a long time, and sad doesn't stay for a long time. When you're at school and you're feeling sad, it's okay to feel sad. It'll stay for a little bit and then you'll feel something else in a little while. And I asked him, what helps you when you're feeling sad? And he was like, I want to go in a cozy spot. And so we found a spot in his classroom. He found this little nook
No,
under a
that's awesome.
slide that could be his cozy spot. But my goal isn't that he doesn't feel sad, which honestly, as an adult and as his parent, sucks. Like, I wish there was a world in which he didn't have to feel sad. Uh, but the reality is he's going to feel it. And I really want him to know that he's safe to feel sad. It won't consume him.
Yeah, that is really cool. And so I think what you've gotten at least across to me, especially, is that modeling our behavior for our kids is just so critically important to regulating them and to helping them with their emotional intelligence and emotional regulation. But I not quite there yet again, but I'm sure a lot of the people here are. That's probably easier said than done,
So
oftentimes, right?
much
Like
easier.
you're just gonna lose your shit, and you're just like, I'm I can't do that in the moment, right? And sometimes, at
Mhm.
least. So like,
Yeah.
how as a parent would you handle that, right? Like when you do lose your temper and you need
Yeah.
to walk it back and try to apologize to your children, or is it even okay to like show your emotion to kids, and like how so? What I mean, certainly, I'm sure it is, but how so, right? And
Yeah.
you've talked a little bit about sportscasting, things like that, but yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let
I
you go.
love this question. So I guess like first and foremost, I've got a master's in this. I've done research in building emotional intelligence. There's not a single day as a teacher or a parent that I've left and been like, wow, I was perfect today. I
Yeah.
handled everything perfectly. It's not the
Right.
goal. It's
Yeah.
really not the goal. And the main reason it's not the goal is that we know that children are going to repeat what they see, not what we tell them to do. And what they're going to see is that we get to make mistakes. They get to make mistakes. And what happens next is really important, that after you make a mistake, what do you do after that? That's what I
Mhm.
want them to learn. And that's what we get to model here. Recently we had like done a grocery pickup order, and I'm coming back home and I've got the kids. I'm trying to get them out of the car. We're going to do lunch. My daughter's going to be ready for nap. And it just like sat in traffic. It was taking longer than anticipated. We pull into the driveway. As we're pulling in, I was like, hey buddy, can you please be my helper in getting stuff out of the car and into the house? We got to get sis in and get some lunch. She's going to start to fade for nap time, and I want to get things moving pretty quickly. And he was like, yep, totally. And we pull in the driveway and I unbuckle him to come help me. And he climbs right up into the front seat and he's just like playing with my windshield wipers, playing with my lights, playing around, doing the opposite of being helpful, to be honest. And I'm
Yeah.
already at this point like a little heightened. I'm probably hungry. It's almost lunchtime. I'm cognizant of like, okay, if we don't speed this along, I'm gonna have two hangry kids and a
Mm.
tired little girl, and really start to do that math, that mental math. And
Mhm.
so I'm starting to get amped, and I'm like pulling groceries in. I'm like, come on, bud, like popping it, come on, bud, come grab some groceries with me. Nothing, fully just in driver's seat mode. And I like get the groceries in, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back and get your sister and bring her in, and then I'm gonna come back and get you. And I come back, get her, come back to get him, and he's like, I want one more minute. And I was like, you already had too many minutes up here. You have surpassed the one more minute, my friend, and we are going inside. And I scoop him up and I turn off the car and I get inside, and I'm like, not gentle or kind or whatever. I'm like in go mode.
Right.
And we get through it. And now he's crying when we get inside. And I'm like busting through lunch and getting it set. And he's just like, he's not going to eat lunch at this point. He's just crying. And my daughter, fully just blocking this out, is eating lunch. And I'm like, I'm going to take her up for nap, and then I'll be back. I go up for nap and I'm like nursing her. And I'm in this dark room, and it just like, I start to come down, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yep, that wasn't your best self,
Right.
Alyssa.
Gotta walk some of that
And
back.
that's right. And so I put her down for nap, and I come down, and he tells me he's never going to talk to me for the rest of his life, which is right now,
Oh,
everything is never and for the rest of my life. Um, and or always. Everything's very huge right now, and a lot of hyperbole. And so I was like, you know what, buddy, you don't have to say anything. I made a mistake. And when we were coming home, I was feeling hungry and I was feeling nervous about sis getting food and getting to bed before she was melting. And I wasn't kind to you. I'm so sorry that I wasn't kind. Next time, I'm going to try and calm my body so that I can be kind to you. And he was like, yeah, and you hurt me on purpose. Right now, he's like, let me tell
You
you
just
all the
piled
things.
on. Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, now I'm just able to receive this. And I'm like, totally.
Right.
It really was not a fun experience. I'm so sorry that I wasn't kind, was just like my statement on repeat. Now, there's a difference between kids knowing that you have feelings and kids feeling responsible for your feelings. So
Mhm.
I wasn't like, you know what? I was frustrated because you were up in the front of the car and you weren't coming out and yada, yada, yada. Because at the end of the day, it's my job to regulate my emotions. And there's not a single behavior that he does that is in charge of whether I feel regulated or dysregulated. I'm in charge of that. And I'm going to
Mhm.
drop the ball on that sometimes, like I did that day. And so when I'm repairing with him, I'm not like, well, if you weren't doing this, then I wouldn't feel this way. I'm like, yeah, no, I was dysregulated. My heart was racing, and I didn't slow it down to be kind to you. And because
Right.
it's my job to set and hold those boundaries and to regulate my own nervous system. But when we're sharing our feelings with our kids, what's key is that we acknowledge them. Wow, I am feeling overwhelmed right now, or oh, I am too frustrated to have this conversation. I'm going to press pause. I'm going to calm my body. What's key is that we're both naming the emotion, but then also naming what are we doing to regulate. That shows them that they're not in charge of our regulation, that we've got that part.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's just what I'm taking from this in general is just the best way to handle children in these types of states is really to handle yourself in the best possible way. And this is just another example of it to me, where it's like you did make a mistake and you are choosing to own up to that mistake to them in the right way, which shows your son, okay, like even mom makes mistakes. And,
All the
but what
time,
she
man.
does after, but what she does after is she apologizes and she realizes them and she calmly, kind of resets and you're obviously modeling that behavior for him to even feel safe to just make mistakes in the first place,
That's right.
right? Let alone how to actually handle things after you do. So that does feel like such a powerful lesson just in, uh, modeling the right behavior even when you actually just did the wrong behavior.
Totally.
You know what I
It's
mean?
it's a doozy because it's like people come for the kids, but they stay for themselves, right? Where they're like, what do I do with my kid? And then they're like, shoot, I'm dysregulated. And I'm like, I feel you, my friend, like
Right.
same. It is, it feels, I think, harder to look at us than it does to look outside of us and say, like, this is a them problem, feels easier than to say, like, whew, how do I navigate my day? And this comes back to the nervous system too. Like, for instance, loop earplugs are my third parent, where I pop loop earplugs in from about 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. every night because they help me be a better parent. And like, I can still hear everyone around me just a little less, which as a
Yeah.
sound sensitive human is delightful. Or thinking about things like, my mother-in-law is lovely and incredible and so helpful and involved. And she got my son this Thomas the Train when he turned 2 that like turns on and drives, and it
Oh
inevitably
boy.
in 14 seconds is like stuck on a wall and it's like duk, 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 duk.
Yeah.
And I want to chuck it out a window. And so I learned for myself, like Thomas cannot be a part of the morning routine. That when
Right.
Thomas is available to play with, by the time we're getting out the door for childcare, I'm losing my cool. And
Right.
so when we put the kids to bed, I put Thomas up in a closet, and Thomas is not back and available until they come home from school, because
Right.
Thomas just is a barrier for me being successful as a parent. And so really
Yeah.
looking at like, what are we doing as the adults to take care of our nervous system? And it requires us to know what is draining your nervous system, and then what do you have that can recharge your nervous system. For me, decreasing sound and then increasing proprioceptive input and touch. Those are two things that are regulating for me. So I love a hug. I love to like wear a child or wear a baby. That like that for me is super calming and regulating. I could have a massage for like 4 days and I'm like, I want more, right? Like I love that. And so it's looking at like, how am I building that into my day in ways that are accessible for me? I right here have a weighted vest that I'll throw on for parts of the day. And I have a walking
Wow.
pad under my desk that are really just like, how do I add that weight? How do I get that proprioception
Yeah.
so that I can recharge my battery throughout the day?
Yeah. I can't wait to take this quiz. Clearly, I just put it in I put it in the chat for everyone to see
Thank
seedquiz.com.
you.
So I'm definitely going to do it after this for myself. I'll give it to my wife and we'll try to do it for our son together. But I mean, everything that you're saying today, it feels like the more awareness you can have of some of, how everyone is different in your life. And I think that's probably important, even just at like a friendship level or your own family members, right?
Yes.
Like to try to might not do their quiz for everybody in your life, but to try to understand, where they might fall in some of that, I think is probably really impactful. I will
Totally.
say, guys, anyone who has questions, please don't hesitate. Like we're kind of getting towards the end of some of our bigger questions, so if anyone has any questions, even if they're specific about an example that they have in their life, anything, don't hesitate. But while we wait, perhaps for some of those to come in, Melissa, the last set of questions I have is just like around boundaries.
Sure.
So boundaries are tough, right? There's a fine line between trying to honor a child's feelings the way that you've described so far, and then letting them run the show, if you will, right? Where they're really dominating to a certain extent. Like, how is it possible to, or how can parents try to strike a balance between empathy and boundaries? And you talk a little bit about boundaries and specific ones that you use, right? Like, I'm not going to let you hit. I'm not going to let you do
Mhm.
certain specific things. But so yeah, how do you approach boundaries?
Yeah, for us, boundaries come back to what can you expect from me? So it doesn't require my kids to do anything for a boundary to be enforced. So, I'll give you an example. I was working with a teacher, a kindergarten teacher recently, and she was like, well, I set this boundary. This kid brought something into the class, and she was like, you can either set it on your desk or you can set it in your cubby. And that's not a boundary, that's a request. We're
Hmm.
asking him to either set it on his desk or set it in his cubby. And so then when he says no and does neither, then she's kind of stuck, right? There's like, well, what
Hmm.
do I do next? A boundary would be you can put it on your desk or your cubby, or I can put it on my desk. I'll set a timer or some sort of a timeline exchange. It depends on the age of the kid as to like what I would use for a visual aid supportive, like when they can expect it. My child will say, don't use a timer, please count. And so he wants to know, like, he wants me to count to 10 or he wants me to count to 5. And you'll know your kids as you start to put this into practice, but letting them know, like, yeah, when I say 5, I'm going to put it on my desk. If you want to choose your cubby or your desk, you can do that before I say 5. And then when I say 5, I'm just following through with that. So I'm going to step in and I'm going to say, great, I'm going to put this on my desk. I'm not mad at you. You're not in trouble. We'll get it back at the end of the day. It's too distracting to have in the classroom right now.
Hmm.
And the key is that when I'm enforcing a boundary, I'm not mad at you and you're not in trouble are true. That I'm not like, oh, okay, I'm doing this now. And I'm doing it from a place of like anger and frustration.
Right.
But instead, that I'm like, yeah, I told you what to expect from me. Here's what it is. We came to that point. Here's what you can expect from me. I'm just enforcing that. I won't let you jump on the couch. You can come down from the couch, or I can come help you come down from the couch. I'm going to walk over there. When I get there, if you're still jumping, I'll help you down. Right? Just letting them know here's what you can expect from me and when. What's that timeline expectation? I think sometimes we just like have request, and then we hit a breaking point and we're like, oh, and then we step in and we do it and we're frustrated and we're angry at them. And it's really that we were trying to rely on patience, which I don't know about you, but I'm not a very patient human. And so if I'm relying on patience, we're all kind of screwed. That if it's
Right.
just like, I'm hoping that within my bandwidth of patience, you do the thing I'm hoping you'll do, I'm going to hit a breaking point at some point.
Yeah.
So I have to switch that from requests and patience to here's a boundary for me of like,
Hmm.
yeah, I won't let you poke me in the hand with your fork. If you want my attention, you can say, Mama, what are you talking about? Or Mama, I feel left out. If you poke me in the hand with a fork again, I'm going to hold the fork.
Yeah.
And then when he pokes me in the hand with the fork again, I'm going to hold the fork. The key with boundaries is they're not like, you know what? I can tell you have my best interest at heart. Thank you so much for keeping me safe. They're not going to be jazzed about the boundary. He's not like,
Right.
okay, here's my fork. I did it again.
You got
Right?
me.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no. And so expecting that when you hold the boundary, they're probably going to have some hard feelings about it, and they're
Hmm.
allowed to have hard feelings. It's leaving the playground, right? Where I'm not trying to set the boundary in a way where they don't feel disappointed to leave. I'm trying to set the boundary and hold it and allow them to feel disappointed to leave.
Right. And the one follow-up question here, and then
Yeah.
we do have a question in the chat that I'd love to get to, and we have a couple more minutes. So from a boundary perspective, the one thing, and again, I'm not quite there yet, so I don't have as much experience as many of the people, certainly you and many of the people in this on the Zoom. But how would you handle, like, if your child continues to just go past that boundary, or the boundary is like a big one, it's a significant boundary, it's not just the jumping on the couch. Like, how do you look at the concept of consequences
Sure.
of going past a boundary? So you're setting the boundary, sure, but there's a repeated offender in the room, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you do about that, or how you address that?
Totally. Yeah, we have a whole chapter in Tiny Humans on boundaries, and we have a whole chapter on consequences, punishments, rewards, in chapters 7 and 8. But the way that I look at consequences is the result of the boundary. So the consequence is that I'm going to take the fork, or that if you are running toward the street and you don't want me to pick you up, well, the consequence is I'm going to pick you up if you're running towards the street, or I'm going to stop
Hmm.
you from doing this thing that isn't safe for you.
Hmm.
um, that's the consequence. There are natural consequences and imposed consequences. Imposed is what I'm going to do, like what you can expect from me. And then the natural consequence would be like, oh, if you try to drink from that cup, it might spill on you. That's an adult sized cup. And then they try to drink from that cup and it ultimately spills on them and they're wet. That being wet is the natural consequence of
Right.
that
Right.
boundary. The imposed consequence is what I will do or what you can expect from me. And
Hmm.
anytime we're seeing like they're not listening to the boundary, usually to me means it's a request, not a boundary, because they don't have to listen. Like
Hmm.
they don't have to do anything different. It's what am I going to do if things don't change? If they're doing something that's not safe, what can they expect from me? And so it's really about, am I setting a request or am I setting a boundary? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, that is very helpful. So I definitely
Um,
just want to get to this last question too.
mhm,
I know that we probably could do a lot more on consequences, I'm sure, but
sure.
so we do have one that says, so going back to letting go of controlling others, I've noticed it really bothers me if another adult or family member tells my child, don't cry. Is this
Mhm.
something to let go of, a learning opportunity for that adult, or an appropriate time to establish a boundary, at least if they're a significant person in this child's upbringing?
First of all, it bothers me too. So same days. It depends. So I'll give you an example. Like we see my parents a few times a year. They live 6 hours away, right? So we'll see them, but they're not every day in my kids' lives. My mother-in-law lives a mile down the road. She's super involved in our life. They have Nana Fridays where she does childcare. Like she's really involved in our life. I have way more conversations with her outside the moment about our parenting approach than I do with my parents, because as long as my kids are going to be like physically safe, with my parents, I'm like, yeah, they're probably going to get like way more ice cream and they're going to hear things like don't cry. And we'll debrief those things after, but it's not a part of their day to day. Whereas with Nana, it's more of a part of their day to day. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just for starters, that like it's not a one size fits all here either. I would look at, you noted like if they're a significant person in the child's upbringing, I will have these conversations outside the moment first of like, hey, oh man, these I'm going to validate the experience of the adult first. Like, wow, getting out the door with these two kids lately is bananas. And I have been like trying some different things. I want to chat through some things that like we've found that are working here. If you have any ideas or questions, and just kind of make a plan so that we're all on the same page and talk through these scenarios, right? Like I know Seiji has we're asking 7 million times to put on the shoes to get out the door, and then he ends up in tears. And it at that point we're like all kind of at our breaking point, and I want to help you figure out what else we can do, but we're also trying to figure this out on our end when we're responding to his emotions. And we say things like don't cry, or we try to make it go away. I just want him to know that it's actually okay if he cries or if he feels something hard, and that he doesn't have to kind of shove it down, because then we know it like comes up again once we're in the car, it comes up later. And so we're trying to help him like learn some of these things. Do you want to do this with us? And really like invite them into the conversation outside the moment. Sometimes they're like, totally, I'm on board. And they'll hear it all and they will implement none of it. Sometimes they're like, yes, I'm on board, let's go. And they're going to implement some of it, or at least try and practice and be in conversation. And sometimes they're like, no, I don't think that that is how we should handle this. And so we have kind of three different buckets where we get to then decide what's our approach here. Right now, with Seiji at 4 years old, we have a lot of conversations with him outside the moment of things that maybe are out of alignment in parenting with people in his day to day, whether it's his teacher or Nana or whomever, and that we talk about like, oh yeah, I saw this happen the other day. I wonder what Nana was thinking about. I know sometimes it's hard for her when you're climbing on high places, even though you feel safe in your body, she might say you need to come down from there or you're not safe. Hmm. What do you think you could do? If you say, no, Nana, I am safe, what do you think she's going to say? And we talk through it with him. And ultimately, he then gets to make a decision of like, next time, do I want to say I am safe? And she says, you're not. You can come down or I can come get you down. And ultimately she gets him down and he's crying. Or you could say, like, okay, I'll come down and then I'll climb that thing later when mom or dad's here where they'll let me do it. They know that I can do it. They're not scared of me being up there. And so helping him start to realize this is actually about her and her fear. And this is the social awareness piece where he gets to decide, do I kind of push here? And is it really important for me to climb up this thing and then also deal with the ramifications later with Nana? Or do I say, okay, this isn't something that feels super important to me and I'll climb it later with my parents where I can just climb and not talk about how safe I am the whole time? And so,
Mhm.
really helping him start to build those social skills and recognize it's not about him. It's about the adult that's interacting with him. And we started having those conversations really consistently around 3, and, like, loosely around, like, 2-ish, where we'd leave a place and I would say, "Wow, Pa was feeling really frustrated when everyone was talking and it was so loud in there. I heard his voice get loud. Did you notice that?" Oof. I felt my body tense up a little bit when his voice got loud. I think Pa might feel overwhelmed and he's still learning what to do when he feels overwhelmed. Again, just putting it back and like, this is the feeling, it's connected to that adult. It's not about us. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, just like the out of the situation conversations on both ends are, it sounds like the only way that you can try to handle it. Certainly it ends up being on both of those parties, right? The person who's
Yeah.
a big part of your child's upbringing as well as the child to handle themselves in the situation. But it definitely feels impactful and helpful. Um,
Yeah. Like if somebody's saying don't cry, I can tell my kid, like, oh, I heard them saying don't cry.
yeah,
They're still learning how to be comfortable when somebody is having a hard time. You can always cry with me or with dad or whomever. We can handle it and it's not too big for us.
yeah, that's awesome, Melissa. Um, Well, I do just want to kind of wrap here, Liz. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to kind of conclude with, and I'll give you the floor to do that momentarily, and then we can all set off on the rest of our days.
Yeah, no, just thank you for having me. Thanks, folks, for caring about emotional intelligence and wanting to tune in and learn more. Tiny Humans, Big Emotions is out now. The quiz is available now for folks. And then coming this fall, we have Big Kids, Bigger Feelings Publishing, which is the 5 to 12-year-old range, too, if you have kiddos in that age range.
Awesome, so exciting, Alyssa. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And if today's conversation hopefully did resonate with you, you can continue it inside the Augie app, and we'll follow up in the app with some of the helpful tools and links from Alyssa. And until next time, take care of your tiny humans and yourself. It sounds like emotional intelligence definitely starts with us, so don't forget that part. But all right, Alyssa, thanks so much. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.
Bye.